As the leaves wither and fall and nights grow grander, many of us turn to spooky stories to send shiver down our spines, or to add a needed thrill for entertainment. But for the indigenous communities, these tales offer more than just thrilling entertainment, but carry teachings, warnings, and wisdom passed down through generations. So, allow me to guide you through 3 brilliant indigenous storytellers, and why it's essential for the preservation and protection of the youth.
Richard Van Camp, who is Tilcho from Fort Smith, has written over 30 books in many genres. 2 of his most recent indulge in the aspect of horror. Van Camp states that traditional storytellers were telling stories to keep children safe, and a multitude of the stories told are about respect, empathy, and taking care of themselves and loved ones. He says stories about why kids should go home when the streetlights were off were told to keep children safe from things that linger in the dark, and I quote, "We were taught not to look out because you don't know who or what's looking in," he said. Here, Richard goes on to sharing a scary story he was told during a lecture, and how that experience opened his eyes on the importance of storytelling forever.
Sometimes a scary story can do more than a lecture ever could. There's a reason that your elders are telling you things. A long time ago, there was a feast. Long time ago on the land, and a lot of people got together, and there was a little boy who stood up when they were eating, and he pointed at an elder, and he said, "You killed me. You killed me. Why did you kill me? Why did you shoot me and my friend?" And the parents of this little child, they couldn't, they were horrified that their little one stood up and pointed at this esteemed elder. And that elder started to cry, covered his face, and said, "I knew this day was coming. I knew this day was coming." And of course, people were yelling, people were very upset, it was very animated, and the parents said, "Well, what are we to do with our son? He won't stop pointing, saying that old man killed me. He killed me in my last life." And so finally the leaders got together and they said, "Well, uncle, do you want to say something to this young person to calm him down?" And he said, "No, he's telling the truth. I knew this day was coming." He said, "I want to hear from the young person what they remember before I tell the truth." And the little boy stood up and he said, "Me and my best friend, it was Christmas. I was a man. Had dog teams. We had such good, we had dry meat, we had fat, we had meat, we had hides. We had so much to share. We just couldn't wait. We've been gone so long from our families. We couldn't wait to get back. And our dog sleds were just loaded with so much good stuff. And we were going across the ice and we seen you. And you were sitting all alone on a hill with a little fire next to your little cabin. And you look so sad. You look so pitiful all by yourself." And I said to my friend, "Let's go. We'll give this old man some meat and share a little bit about what we have, and maybe he'll make us some tea before we go home. We'll warm up a little bit, give the dogs a break." But as we were making our way across the ice with our dog team, he pointed at that old man, "you raised your rifle and you shot my best friend. You killed him with one shot. His body fell off his dog sled." And the dog team, they started going in big circles. They were just crying. They didn't understand what happened. I couldn't believe it. And I looked, and you raised your rifle and you shot me and you killed me. As our spirits rose over our dog teams, everything that we loved, I said, "Oh no, I'm not going back to the ancestors. Oh no, I couldn't believe you took our life. I could not believe you took my life and my best friend's life. Our families are waiting for us." And I flew and I went over the treetops and I went to another camp, and there was a woman there and she was pregnant. I went inside that woman's tummy and I became that baby. I've been waiting for this day, waiting till I seen you again. I want you to know, why did you kill us? And that elder cried and he said, "I knew this day was coming." He said, I'd had the worst year. I'm so sorry. You need to know I paid for it ever since. I had the worst year, bad luck, and I saw you too. I saw you two coming with all those furs and all that meat. You were so happy. And something whispered to me, well, just shoot that one. Just shoot him. You'll probably miss. I don't know what happened. I grabbed my gun. I was just so miserable. I grabbed my gun and I fired and I shot your friend. And I realized once I killed him, I had to kill you. But I knew this. I knew I was going to pay. I knew it. I hid everything. I was careful with the furs, and so it could never come back to me. But I did kill you. I knew you were going to come back. I somehow knew it. And that is a true story. I never forgot that. And so when we tell those stories, Darla, when I guarantee there's people that are listening now that are going to say, exactly, we've always believed in reincarnation. The Tlichos say, if a baby's born and as they get older and they're born with the silver hair, they've been here before. You scare your loved ones sometimes. It is coming from a place of love, because of course we want to protect our little ones. Of course we want to protect our families, our communities. And these are overwhelming and terrifying times. And I find that, stories, I love stories because they pull us closer together, especially the scary ones, right?
Ruben Martel, a brilliant filmmaker from Waterhen Lake First Nation in Saskatchewan, who directed the horror movie Don't Say Its Name, which won 3 Canadian awards. He believes stories rooted in personal experience carry significant lessons. He recalled a moment from childhood ceremony that convinced him that the traditional stories he'd hear from when he was young were all true.
In our community of Waterhen Lake, we would go to a sweat maybe once a week, maybe sometimes even 3 or 4 times a week. It really depended on it was more of like after a while, it wasn't for asking for help or assistance or anything. It was just the ceremony that we love to attend. So by the time I was 12 years old. I was in grade 7. Usually for us, we were kind of used to going to sweats during the day or the afternoon. But because she taught until 5, we had to go to the sweat that was like 7 or 8, and it was kind of weird. It was different for us. We did the first round. It's hot, and everybody's glad the doors are open and steam comes out of the sweat lodge. Then probably they said we're waiting for somebody. We're waiting, so they brought in some more rocks to keep it warm, hot in there. And then this person was shaking. We seen this young guy, probably in his mid-20s, and he looked scared and anxious, and he wasn't scared and anxious of anything. He was scared and anxious of himself, and he kept on. He was shaking, and he wasn't looking at anybody, and he was keeping his head down, and he was like really anxious. He wasn't scary, or he wasn't but there was something about him. Like there was just something, like it wasn't speaking in voices or anything. It was just something like just so weird. So he comes into the sweat lodge. He comes in, and the sweat lodge just turned cold. Like it just went cold, and everybody was kind of like moving away from, because the cold was coming from him. And so right away, like the door was open, the guy started splashing the rocks, and nothing, like just no steam, no nothing, just like water hitting cold rocks. And he started getting really even more anxious. That guy was watching him throw the water on the rocks and nothing. Like he started crying, like he couldn't handle it. And he kept on saying, I don't think I'll ever get warm. And he literally got up and got out of the sweat lodge. And then the moment he left the sweat lodge, steam just came from the rocks. And then they started talking about how the spirit, the winter spirit that would possess weak-willed mind, and was in that kid, and they knew that for about, they were keeping him by fires, and they were trying to warm him up. And this was like something that was it was the first time in my mind, like I had this faith in the spirits, and it was the first time I seen something in real life that it was like, this is real. Like, and it kind of like, in my mind, it was kind of like seeing I guess in the colonial way, it's like seeing Peter at the gates or seeing Jesus or something, because it was a spirit that signifies greed and hunger and just devouring of resources and devouring of like people's will. and taking from weak middle mind people. So we left, and I guess, well, I didn't guess. My mother kind of had that conversation with me, like, well, we've seen that, and I guess it was something that was so like affirming of my beliefs. It's like it would have been just like if a Christian met Jesus, and it was just like, okay, it's real now. I think people don't understand like life experience. They're explaining people to life experience, and they said, well, they go through that situation, and then they need to learn the hard way by not listening to the person that said avoid this or don't do that. And then I think we as humans, like, we have this curiosity that I want to be scared, and like I want to experience that, and I think we need to experience it in order to say I never want to do that again, or I should listen, but you never really listen. You always want to experience the thing that everybody tells you not to do, and I think that's just humans being human. Like,
According to Rubin, this experience taught him empathy, and I quote, "Sometimes the monster isn't a bad guy, but often a bad label on someone who's had a rough time trying to deal with the situation." Now for our last storyteller, I introduce to you Isaac Murdoch from Serpent River First Nation in Northern Ontario. He says storytelling has been an essential way for Indigenous people to teach, which I quote, "It was always an accurate way of passing down information from one generation to the next," he says. When he was younger, he once saw a pictograph in northern Saskatchewan of 3 creatures, a wolf, a moose, and a man. He asked the elders what it meant, and they spoken that it was the creation story for fire. In the Great Lakes of Ontario, the same pictograph was found. These 2 pictographs were dated 1,000 years apart, but the stories that came with it were identical, says Murdoch. He emphasized the power of oral history and how it can preserve knowledge through generations. The education that our elders teach us is so important, and it will teach us how to survive not just good times, but the bad times, the scary times, because those have to come too. That's part of our life, he says. These storytellers remind us that Indigenous stories are far more than entertainment. They are a spiritual bridge connecting the past, present, and future. They are knitted with lessons of empathy, respect, resilience, and survival. By listening and honoring these voices, we not only celebrate a rich, beautiful cultural heritage, but also equip future generations with the wisdom to face life's challenges with courage and understanding. As the leaves fall and the nights grow darker, let's remember the light these stories shine into the abyss, a light that guides us all with wisdom.